Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista. Welcome to our afternoon update on Tropical Storm Erick. It is an intensifying storm. Let's go over the latest of what the National Hurricane Center has right now. The latest advisory just came out as of 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Tropical Storm Erick. The latest maximum sustained winds are 50 miles per hour with the minimum central pressure of 1,001 millibars. If you're tracking it, it is located at 12.9 north and 94.4 west, and it is moving west northwest, not west northwest, northwest at 7 miles per hour. Here's the latest satellite image of Erick as of this afternoon. And this morning we had a little bit of dry air in the center of Erick, but especially in the most recent frames in the last hour or so, we've really begun to develop lots of convective bursts pretty much right over the center. And a core seems to be developing in Erick's center. So this might have a fully developed core soon. In fact, the latest microwave imagery, you could see not a full core right now, but there's definitely a core developing in there. And that's important because if there is a full core, that means the structure of the storm is fully developed. And once that occurs, Erick is probably gonna take off and rapidly intensify to the point that it might even become a major hurricane before it strikes the Mexican coast, probably sometime Thursday, late morning, early afternoon. And we'll see how Erick fares, because tomorrow there will be recon into the storm, and this will be very important to get an idea of what happens, how its structure looks like, so we're not just relying on satellite images like the microwave imagery here, but we could actually see what the structure of the storm actually is. And recon data is very, very important into inputting data for hurricane models, which then they can use to give us an output. And when hurricane models have recon data, they can be very accurate, and sometimes in intensity, these hurricane models can really nail these storms, especially storms like Erick, which are small and going to rapidly intensify. So we'll have to watch this recon and see, and I'll definitely be paying attention to this recon very closely, and we'll see what happens with Erick tomorrow. And there's also going to be recon Thursday morning too, presumably before it makes landfall along the Mexican coast. But by tomorrow, Erick should probably already be a hurricane. In fact, the National Hurricane Center expects that Erick will intensify to a hurricane by midday tomorrow. In fact, if things go well, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a hurricane overnight. And then obviously this will strike the Mexican coastline probably sometime late Thursday morning. And this is local time there, so Eastern time. If you're along the East Coast tracking Erick, this will probably be an early afternoon landfall. And now, as of the 5 o'clock advisory Eastern time, the National Hurricane Center 2 has issued hurricane warnings for the Mexican coast. So once again, if you are along the Mexican coast, I really advise start preparing right now. Evacuate if you're along the coastline. If you are a tourist, maybe down there for vacation and travels in Mexico, you should start making your plans to evacuate and head back and grab a plane maybe tonight or tomorrow before Erick arrives on Thursday. And the National Hurricane Center expects this could potentially become a Category 2 storm, this point right here on 12 a.m. Thursday, right before it makes landfall Thursday, late Thursday morning. The National Hurricane Center forecasts a 110 mile per hour peak. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, and I think the National Hurricane Center even says that they probably expect this to become a major hurricane in between these two peak points as it approaches the coast. and I wouldn't be shocked if this becomes a major hurricane. In fact, most of the hurricane models expect this to become a major hurricane. And a lot of the general overall intensity guidance, including the ships, which I should have brought up right now, but the ship's statistical model guidance, I showed you it this morning, but for this afternoon's update as well, the ship's is updated and now indicates that this will probably rapidly intensify to a major hurricane. They have a 70% chance within the next 48 hours that Erick will intensify and become a major hurricane before it makes landfall here along the Mexican coast. And you can see with the intensity model guidance, if it doesn't become a major hurricane, I'm pretty sure it will almost for sure be at least a solid hurricane making landfall. I'm actually surprised that most of the model guidance here for the intensity don't really indicate major hurricane strength, including some of these hurricane models in here, because if you actually look at what the hurricane models show, a lot of them do expect this to become a Category 3, but I'll show you the hurricane models in just a moment. But in the very least, all the hurricane intensity guidance indicates that Erick will definitely strengthen into a hurricane, a lot of them converging around high-end Category 1 to low-end Category 2. In reality, though, I think this will probably be much stronger than that. So we'll have to see. But the second important part of this is not just the intensity, but where this makes landfall too, because there are some pretty big cities, including Acapulco, which I believe now is in a hurricane watch. And I've seen some people talk about the fact that it really depends on what Erick does and how much the track deviates, because that'll really have a significant impact on where this storm will make landfall. And I actually decided to kind of overlay the track, or I kind of had to create the points themselves, but I took the forecast data from the latest National Hurricane Center map and I put them on top of a map using Google My Maps. And so pretty much I'm just trying to show you what the official hurricane forecast track is, being overlaid on top of Google Maps, so we can get an idea of where the storm is expected to strike. And as of right now, at least for cities like Acapulco, which was very badly impacted last year by Hurricane John, and then the year before that was devastatingly hurt by Hurricane Otis. For now, Acapulco is just to the west of where John is going to make landfall. In fact, John kind of seems to, not John, Erick kind of seems to take this track where it might stay very close to the coast once it makes landfall. And I've also seen lots of people talk. The way this is coming in, just imagine a 5-mile shift to the south, or maybe 10 to 15 miles, and we're probably talking about a landfall along the actual coastline in a much different area than where the forecast track is right now. It's because right now, at least, it seems like if this does follow the National Hurricane Center track, it seems like it'll probably make landfall right near in this town, Callejon de Romulo. I think that's how you say it. But let's just say that this track gets shifted just a little bit further down to the southwest. We could very easily see a landfall maybe here near Colonia Juan and Alvarez, or maybe if the track shifts just a little bit enough, and this will really depend on what kind of shifts we have right now in the present time. So we really got to watch to see what the wobbles are. We might even see a full-on shift that ends up putting Acapulco once again in the direct line of fire for another probably pretty intense hurricane landfall, and that's very significant because Acapulco is a very big city, or it is a major city, and they've also gotten devastated pretty significantly over the last several years by multiple storms. So everybody along the Mexican coast right now needs to be watching very closely, including Acapulco and pretty much the entire southeastern Mexican coast. I'd say probably generally try to make an inference based on what the hurricane forecast is. So I'd say pretty much from Salina Cruz, pretty much all the way till Acapulco, and probably including some extra areas, points west of Acapulco, need to watch directly right now for a potential, at least talking potentially about a direct head-on landfall. But impacts wise, I'll actually show you right now. This is not, and I always say this. All right, let me really quickly. This is very difficult. There we go. Impacts wise, a hurricane is not a single point on a map. The wind field is very expansive, and we saw instances like that with Delilah, where Delilah was offshore of Mexico. It was not forecast to hit the Mexican coastline, but its wind field was expansive enough that tropical storm force winds were being felt along the Mexican coastline, and as a result, there had to be tropical storm warnings put in effect. And that is also pretty much the same case you can make with the rainfall. Is regardless of where Erick makes landfall, regardless of where the direct eye will go over, large swaths of the coast, and not just on the coast, but inland of the coast, will experience very, very heavy rainfall. In fact, many widespread areas along the coast, some of these areas in here might see as much as 16 to 20 inches of rain, or if you follow the millimeter measurement, if you're obviously in Mexico, because in the United States we use inches, but obviously Mexico uses the metric system. That's as much as 400 to 500 millimeters of rain. So lots and lots and lots of rain expected along the Mexican coast, and even as far inland as central Mexico, some places could get up to half a foot of rain, and even decently inland of the coast areas as well could see as much as a foot of rain, and that would be as much as 200 to 300 millimeters of rain. And I mention this because, as I always say, the number one impact when it comes to these tropical cyclones is the flooding rain. It's the floods, it's the storm surge, not the winds. The winds are a big part of it, but we tend to focus too much on the category and how strong the winds are. But let's be honest, in reality, especially because Erick is going to be a strong storm, and let me really quickly go to the model track guidance here. Depending on where this makes landfall, wherever it makes landfall, the winds will only be, or at least the strongest part of the winds, the major hurricane force winds, if this does make landfall as a major hurricane, which it might very well do so. Those are only going to be felt over a very small area, probably only a few miles, while the rainfall will be the one threat that will actually be widespread and impact many. So really focus and do not let your guard down when it comes to the rain, because it might be very widespread. And as I always say, rainfall and the floods are the number one killer, not the winds. But at least when it comes to a direct landfall, once again, these wobbles that happen with Erick are really going to be crucial into where exactly it makes landfall, and you can see it very much kind of pan out with the model track guidance. Very, very big spread of the Mexican coastline, pretty much all the way from, I would assume, where Acapulco is, to pretty much right up, almost a good chunk, I should say, of the central southeastern Mexican coastline. So if you guys are anywhere along the Mexican coastline right now, anybody watching from here, whether you are a local that lives in the area, that lives in Mexico, or if you're a tourist, you have to have your eyes glued on Erick over the next several hours. It's really going to depend on how things shape up right now over the next day and how much the track changes to where we're going to get the direct impact, because any small little track shift will be a very big shift in terms of where exactly this will make landfall. And not only will it'll not only be important to track that, but it's also because this will be probably a very strong storm as it impacts land. So everybody obviously will want to know where exactly the storm makes landfall. And really quickly, just to show you the GFS, this ramps up very quickly. It goes from it goes from right now it's a thousand millibars, or the GFS I guess is kind of initializing this a little high. And I should throw the caveat that the GFS is obviously a global model, so they're not necessarily great with catching the exact intensity of a hurricane. For that, we're going to have to look at the hurricane models, which I'll show you in a little bit. And I'm going to show you all 4 hurricane models. But this ramps up very quickly, goes from 994 in just a span of 6 hours, actually. Just look at that on the GFS. 994 to 983 to 978 to 973, and then to 966. So a total of pretty much within a span of 24 hours. Let's see if I could back that up. So from 18 hours to 42 hours goes from pretty much 994 to 966. So that is probably a very rapid intensification that we're going to see occur with Erick. And I'll show you the hurricane models. Let's really quickly go through all of them. Let's start off with the HWRF. The latest HWRF as of the 12Z. Has the 18Z not come out yet? Yikes. I really hope that the 18Z would have come out by now. But the HWRF brings this as strong as 961 millibars and brings this up to category 3 strength. And it does so. This is by early Thursday afternoon. And this is also very important because this will also, depending on where this makes landfall, will probably either cut off the amount of time it'll have over water, so cut off how much time it might have to rapidly intensify and potentially gain more strength than it could, versus especially if this ends up making a landfall further to the west along the Mexican coastline, this will maybe buy itself potentially more time, to the point that this might even be stronger than we expect right now, because the HWRF literally doesn't have this landfall at all till early Friday morning, and obviously the National Hurricane Center has this landfall late Thursday morning and early Thursday afternoon. So that is also another big thing to watch when it comes to the track, because this might, depending on what kind of shifts we see, Erick might as well buy itself some time. And then versus the HMON, the HMON has been the most aggressive of all the models, I think. They're really aggressive. They bring this down to 947 millibars and have maximum sustained winds at 120 knots, and that is a mid-range category 4. And then, unlike the HWRF, the HMON has this make landfall at late Thursday afternoon. So the HWRF has this make landfall further west. Let's see. Is this further west on the HWRF? Yes, it is. It's significantly to the west of the HWRF. And the HWRF has this, or the HWRF is significantly to the west of the HMON and has this make landfall sometime early Friday morning, while the H-Mon, going back to the H-Mon, there we go. The H-Mon has this make landfall further east in the H-Wharf, and it makes landfall late Thursday afternoon. So quite a time discrepancy, and it is all impact, and it is a direct result because of landfall location. So that's again a really other big thing that we're going to have to watch. And the HAFS model, the HAFS A, has this make landfall even further to the east than the H-Mon, and somehow they still bring this to major hurricane intensity, and they have this storm make landfall by early Thursday morning. So a full 24-hour difference than the H-Wharf in terms of when they expect a landfall to occur. And once again, HAFS A has a major hurricane. And then the HAFS B also showing a major hurricane and similar intensity to the HAFS A and seemingly similar landfall locations. So two models that agree on where this might generally make landfall and the general timing. So at least two out of the four models agree on what exactly might happen. But the bottom line that I'm trying to get to you with bringing up all these hurricane models is what's going to happen over the next few hours, what's going to happen the rest of tonight and into tomorrow with Erick will be very important because it'll have huge implications on track, which will have implications on landfall timing, and that'll have implications on the potential intensity that Erick might reach. So lots of moving factors to watch, and we'll certainly do that for you throughout the rest of this evening, and of course into tomorrow. I'll be posting multiple video updates tomorrow, and I also might do a live stream tomorrow afternoon. So if you want to stay tuned for that and you have not already done so, please subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell so whenever I post these videos, you can get them the moment I upload. And also follow me on Twitter because I upload and tweet a lot there. And I also tweet things whenever the moment something happens, I'm able to send out a tweet, and instead of having to put together a 20-minute long video like I'm doing for you right now. So please follow me on Twitter, or X as it's also called too, whichever you want to call it. Same name as I have here on YouTube, Danilo Evangelista. With that being said, that's going to wrap it up for this afternoon's update on Tropical Storm Erick. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. Start preparing if you are in the direct line of fire from Erick. Don't waste time. As I always say, luck favors the prepared. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.